some videos are strange, others are dangerous. Today, what we are about to see is real, completely unedited, with no visual effects. Every flicker, every warped frame is part of the original footage, the found footage. These tapes weren't made for entertainment. They're tied to real tragedies, cryptic warnings, and mysteries buried for decades. Footage so disturbing, it feels wrong to even watch. From the final words of a cult leader, to a masked figure feeding a silent man, to a chilling video left behind by someone who might have known too much. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. Thank you. And now let's get into some disturbing found footage. Jonestown.
What's going to happen here in a matter of a few minutes is that one of those people on that plane is going to shoot the pilot. I know that. I didn't plan it, but I know it's going to happen. We're going to shoot that pilot, and down comes that plane into the jungle. And we had better not have any of our children left when it's over.
This is what was left from the bodies. Ashes and bullets riddled across the Jonestown airstrip. The person speaking on tape? Jim Jones, a cult leader and mass murderer. World War II had ended a decade earlier. Figures like Stalin and the idea of communism were extremely unpopular in the US for obvious reasons, but some still believed in the idea even after widespread discrimination of anyone associated with the Communist Party. Jim Jones, born in Crete, Indiana, grew up during the tumultuous times after the First World War and during the Second. As a young boy, he had an interest in the leaders, such as Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, and the Mustache Man, and particularly liked communist leaders like Stalin and Lenin. He had complex political views and practiced what he called as apostolic socialism, which is what he based and founded. And in 1955, he created his religious movement, the People's Temple, based on those political views. You might have heard of this phrase in its separate parts. Apostolic meaning something that relates to the apostles of the religion of Christianity, and socialism being a political ideology that itself requires another video to cover, but they are rarely used together, and in fact may have been first coined by Jim Jones himself. In the People's Temple, members practiced communalism and radical sharing, which meant that they shared every single thing they owned. Jones used Acts, a book in the New Testament of the Bible, and its passages to justify specifically the traditions that the apostles followed. Here are a couple of passages that showed this. From Acts chapter 2, verses 44 through 45, all the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. And from Acts chapter 4, 32 through 35, all the believers were one in heart and mind. No one claimed that any of their possessions was their own, but they shared everything they had. With great power, the apostles continued to testify to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and God's grace was so powerfully at work in them that all there were no needy persons among them. For from time to time, those who owned land or houses sold them, brought the money from the sales and put it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to anyone who had need. Jones believed in total equality. No rich or poor or any kind, for barriers between people existed in his vision. No racial divisions, no segregations. He wanted his followers to share everything and live unselfishly, completely for others. You might have heard the quote from the Bible, "It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God." Jones modified this to say, "It's harder for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of socialism, the kingdom of God, than for a camel to go through the eye of a needle." While Jones was interested in the Mustache Man, it is wrong to say that he admired him. In fact, he denounced such people as people who abused the idea of socialism. It is important to note that while Jones' personal ideology may have changed in the following years, many of the members of the People's Temple sincerely believed in their core ideology and tried their very best to follow it. Of course, in this era of segregation, Jones's preaching was not met well, especially in rural Indiana, where he founded the People's Temple. So, after backlash, he moved to Redwood Valley, California in 1965. In the following decade, the movement would go on to open more branches in LA and San Francisco, which is where the headquarters would eventually be situated. The group was extremely popular in California, especially San Francisco, and Jones was appointed chairman of the San Francisco Housing Authority, where he could meet highly influential people like First Lady Rosalynn Carter. Unfortunately for him, the good times would not last, as in the later part of 1973, several newspaper articles would come out that heavily criticized the movement, which was further compounded by the defecation of 8 temple members. In order to avoid a police crackdown, Jones, along with his attorney, prepared a contingency plan. One option was fleeing to Canada, and another was relocating to a missionary post in the Caribbean region, such as Barbados. Although, ultimately, they chose the country of Guyana for several reasons. The group thought that the US government and many big companies had an extensive racism problem, and Guyana had prominent black leaders and was also an English-speaking socialist country. Furthermore, Jones thought that the country was small and poor, so he could easily gain influence there, and he negotiated with the Guyanese government to allow the temple to create a home for themselves there. One major reason was that Guyana had a border problem with Venezuela, and an American presence near the border could help scare the Venezuelans away. So, Jones got his land, which was 3,800 acres in the jungle, approximately 250 kilometers away from Georgetown, Guyana's capital. It wasn't really anything special. There was no major city nearby, the soil was low quality, and the nearest water body was more than 10 kilometers away with no good connection. First, 500 of the temple moved to start the construction. Guyana let them in after Jones stated that they were skilled and progressive, and claimed to invest $500,000 into the country. Jonestown, as it was now called, was supposed to be the utopia Jones talked about. His wife described it as dedicated to live for socialism, total economic and racial and social equality. We are here living communally. Interestingly, members could not leave without his prior permission. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter to enforce this. In the summer of 1977, Jones and several hundred members followed him, believing Jones' promise. Life changed drastically after Jones arrived, however. For the first few months, members had to work from 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. with just 1 hour break in between, 6 days a week. Later, it was changed to 8 hours a day for 5 days a week. Following that, members had to attend hours of activities conducted by Jones. He himself compared the work schedule to the North Korean system of 8 hours of daily work, followed by 8 hours of study. He would study the very person he criticized to learn how to manipulate the members of his movement. Gradually, he subjected his followers to mind control techniques he learned from Mao Zedong and Kim Il-sung. For example, he would discuss current events and interrogate followers individually about them, and then tell them about how to read these events. He would show Soviet documentaries and political thrillers continuously and analyze them, and deliver them the message he wanted them to hear. Inhabitants had access to TV, but it was closed circuit, which meant that Jones decided what they could watch, but even then, no one was allowed to watch without an appointed temple member to interpret it for them, basically saying capitalism is bad, disavowing the US, and praising communism. The poor soil did not help at all in the community being self-sufficient, so they had to import basically everything, and meals were basically rice, beans, and greens most days. As nobody worked a real job, the main source of income for the community was through social security checks from the US government, which may seem slightly hypocritical. Up to $65,000 a month came in from the states, and when officials asked if residents were forced to give up their money, nobody said they were doing it against their will. Children were usually not allowed to see their biological parents except very briefly at night, but were instead put into communal care. It became clear that Jones was on drugs, as his paranoia began to increase, and in his mind, the threat of a conspiracy against the People's Temple became very serious. Sometimes, after work, they would have what Jones called white nights, where he would call alert, alert, alert over the loudspeaker system. The members would all gather into the pavilion where armed guards surrounded them. He gave them 4 options: attempt to flee to the Soviet Union, commit revolutionary S-word, stay in Jonestown, or fight and flee into the jungle. If they chose S-word, they rehearsed a masked killing. As one defector described it, everyone, including the children, was told to line up. As we passed through the line, we were given a small glass of red liquid to drink. We were told that the liquid contained poison and that we'd die within 45 minutes. We all did as we were told. When the time came when we should have dropped dead, Reverend Jones explained that the poison was not real and that we had just been through a loyalty test. He warned us that the time was not far off when it would become necessary for us to die by our own hands. Every month, Jonestown would get half a pound of cyanide, supposedly to clean gold. Things started to heat up even more as former members, Tim and Grace Stowen, went to court to get their 5-year-old son, John, back. The court issued an order for John to be taken into protective custody. After this event, Jones no longer trusted the Guyanese government, and his paranoia reached a new high. The temple began thinking of another mass immigration like the one that initially brought them to Guyana. One suitable location was obviously the Soviet Union, and frequent meetings began to happen between Jones and the embassies of the Soviet Union and other countries such as Cuba, North Korea, and Yugoslavia. In the end, Jones decided against it, saying that he liked the sovereignty of staying in Guyana, which he would not get if he moved anywhere else. The defectors began to grow in number and formed a group called the Concerned Relatives. They started campaigning to the US government to lobby for an official investigation into Jonestown. In 1978, Jones was interviewed by the San Francisco Examiner, and the rest of the world found out about the custody battle of John, which was followed up by an immediate threat of a lawsuit by the temple. Of course, their reputation was severely hit. 91 congressmen wrote the letters to the Guyanese government addressing the grievances of the Concerned Relatives. Throughout this, Jones's health was deteriorating rapidly, as he was abusing Valium, Quaaludes, and stimulants excessively. He had high blood pressure and frequent convulsions, and he would often slur his words or even completely stop speaking randomly. So, after a lot of public concern, Leo Ryan, a congressman who represented one of California's districts, decided to make a visit to Jonestown. He was friends with the father of Bob Houston, who was found mutilated near some train tracks a few days after a conversation with his wife where he discovered leaving the temple. Along with his legal advisor, several reporters and their camera crews, and Concerned Relatives representatives, he flew to Jonestown on November 14, 1978. He was initially refused access to the settlement by Jones's attorneys, but Ryan decided to come to Jonestown anyway. When they arrived, only Ryan and a few others were allowed access, and the rest had to wait till sunset. They were received warmly and even had a musical reception at night, but Jones said that he felt like a dying man and spoke about conspiracies and martyrdom, contrasting the rehearsals that Jonestown residents had to convince Ryan that everything was all right. Soon, 2 of the members tried to defect by mistakenly passing a note to an NBC reporter instead of Ryan, which said, "Dear Congressman, Vernon Gosney and Monica Bagby, please help us get out of Jonestown." The next day, several of the members asked for permission to leave along with the congressman. It was approved, but Jones said that the defectors were lying and wanted to destroy Jonestown. When it was time to leave, most of the defectors and Ryan's party departed in a dump truck to the nearest airstrip, Port Kaitauma. Ryan and Dwyer stayed behind for any extra defectors. After it departed, one member tried to attack Ryan with a knife, but he could not do anything as he was pulled away. After hearing the attack, the truck stopped so they could take Ryan with them along with a loyal temple member named Larry, who was also shockingly wanted to defect. Because so many more defectors had joined, the original plane that the embassy had sent could not fit them all in, so they sent another plane, a Cessna which could only accommodate 6 people. It was the first to take off, and Larry was in it. As it reached the end of the airstrip, he pulled out his handgun and shot the passengers. He wounded 2 before being disarmed. While they were boarding the larger plane, a tractor filled with members from the Temple's Red Brigade security squad arrived at the airstrip. They started firing at the Twin Otter with handguns, shotguns, and rifles. Everyone except the pilots and co-pilot of both planes, along with 1 defector, was killed. They escaped in the Cessna. Meanwhile, in Jonestown, they started preparing a large tub of Flavor Aid that was poisoned with various chemicals like diazepam, cyanide, and promethazine. About 30 minutes after Ryan had left in the truck, everybody was summoned to the pavilion. Jim Jones told them,
What's going to happen here in a matter of a few minutes is that one of those people on that plane is going to shoot the pilot. I know that. I didn't plan it, but I know it's going to happen. They're going to shoot that pilot, and down comes that plane into the jungle. And we had better not have any of our children left when it's over, because they'll parachute in here on us.
We encouraged the members to commit revolutionary S-word, just like they practiced in the White Knights. Some argued otherwise, saying that they should be airlifted to the Soviet Union, but once Jones confirmed that Ryan, the congressman, had died, there was no further dissent. So, as guards surrounded them, everyone was handed vials of the poison to drink. As it began to take effect, Jones preached, "Die with a degree of dignity. Lay down your life with dignity. Don't lay down with tears and agony. I tell you, I don't care how many screams you hear. I don't care how many anguished cries. Death is 1,000,000 times preferable to 10 more days of this life. If you knew what was ahead of you, you'd be glad to be stepping over tonight." Blank room soup. We found most of our props and costumes stolen. A few weeks later, I got home from work, turned on my computer, and saw an email with an attachment. Blank Room Suit gained immense popularity during the early days of YouTube, with some speculating that it was from the dark web, which at the time would be said just to gain attention, seeing as the dark web was exploding in popularity. However, it wasn't very clear where the video actually came from, with one video on YouTube having posted it in early 2014, with the title Blank Room Soup. Comments in 2014 were disgusted, worried, and hated the video, which is what gave it the almost 40,000 dislikes it has. However, digging deeper, the supposed original copy of the video came from Dailymotion, posted by a user called Ray TV, who seems to have a YouTube channel as well. As of today, the YouTube channel and Dailymotion account both have the same videos, with the soup video mysteriously missing. Except, these videos were never meant to exist. Going through the Internet Archive, 2 videos involving the soup stuff can be found, one titled Soup Torture, and the other titled Freaky Soup Guy. The evidence pointed to this being the original video is that firstly, the 2 weird guys in costumes can't be found anywhere else except on this Ray TV channel. Secondly, the upload date of the original Freaky Soup Guy video was on January 1st, 2008, predating any other video uploaded online of this guy eating soup. The other video titled Soup Torture, posted on the same date, was only about 45 seconds long, as compared to the original 1-minute long video of the other guy eating soup. On the descriptions of both videos, it reads as follows. For the first original Freaky Soup Guy, a clip of people who look like us doing something to someone that we would never do. We promise. In the second Soup Torture video reads, what's happening in this clip? And why do these people look like us? Their tone of voice in the descriptions make it abundantly clear they're being sarcastic, or rather teasing about the fact that they created the videos. While the other videos seem out of place and unordinary, it's honestly pretty adjacent to old YouTube slop and what kids would be watching. When it comes to the soup videos, however, it's pretty simple, yet unnerving. A man eats some sort of soup or food out of a bowl with what seems to be a ladle. His eyes are censored, and he seems to have been eating the soup for a while, with some being split on the table, and his tank top being wet and scrunched up. Behind him, a random figure dressed in a costume walks up behind him, eerily. He begins to eat more of his soup faster and faster before the costume guy begins to comfort him in some twisted manner. Some people have speculated that they're forcing him to eat human remains, or something even worse, with some theories suggesting that he's eating his wife's remains. The Ray Ray characters seem to be holding him hostage, torturing him almost, or whatever else sick and twisted reason there could be for subjecting the poor guy to eating whatever that is. In the middle of eating, as he's being comforted by the first costume guy, he breaks down crying, soup or whatever that is, falling out of his mouth, prompting a second individual dressed exactly the same as the first to appear in frame and begin comforting the man as well. People still have no idea whether this is fake, real, an ARG, or what. Another theory people have is that this is some sort of weird video created to satisfy some messed up dude's fantasy of, well, whatever this is. Adding to the mystery, it's been said by the creators that the Ray Ray suits were stolen to create this video. This wouldn't explain, however, how the video ended up being uploaded by Ray Ray themselves. The most prominent theory is that this is most likely a skit, but with some sources stating that it is indeed originate from the dark web, we never know. But it doesn't end here. It never does. The creator of Ray Ray was traced to a man called Raymond Percy, as seen in the description of this video. Raymond Saharth Percy is an American animator, director, screenwriter, producer, storyboard artist, and voice actor. He has directed many episodes of The Simpsons, including Mobile Homer, The Girl Who Slept Too Little, and The Monkey Suit, Little Big Girl, 24 Minutes, Love, Springfieldian Style, and the Emmy award-winning The Seemingly Never-Ending Story. Percy went on to work as the sequence director of The Simpsons movie. He's even voiced quite a few characters in the movies, and I'm not going to list them all, but just some, big ones are Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen, Zootopia, Ralph Breaks the Internet, and Minions, The Rise of Gru. So the question now is, what does a successful creative working for Walt Disney Studios have to do with these messed up videos? A lot of speculation is that this is some of his earlier work. Not the soup video, but the other videos. And seeing as they have a bit of animation work in them, it checks out and makes sense. This is where the story of a clip of people who look like us doing something to someone that we would never do, we promise, starts to make a little sense. Perhaps the truth really is that the suits were stolen, or even just modeled separately to look like Ray Ray's characters. Someone did reach out to Raymond and ask about everything, to which he replied back in an email which stated, "Ray Ray is a performance I created years ago. That's also the two characters' names, Ray Ray. I created them as a way to visualize and have fun with my feelings of loneliness and isolation at the time. They were sort of caricatures of me. Ray Ray didn't have the tools to communicate or express their thoughts, but still stood out and drew attention from the outside world, whether or not they wanted to. They started out as doodles, then paintings, then art pieces, until finally what you see in the videos. Full bodies, characters, existing and living in the world, and yet completely apart from it. For a project that, at its core, was about isolation and misunderstanding, I met and got to work with a lot of great performers and artists. Ray Ray mostly performed in LA, but we did get to take them across the United States and even to a few other countries. One time we performed at a club on the Sunset Strip in Hollywood. I think it was the Key Club. It had such a small backstage that the dressing room was a dirty, broken down RV in the alley behind the club. We were performing with a circus type group that had dancers, drummers, fire eaters, etc. This group had a fan base in LA, so there were a lot of people that knew our act. After the show, we were all in the now empty club, striking the stage and loading equipment, the not fun part of performing, when my group went back to the RV to pack our stuff and go get some food. We found out that most of the Ray Ray props and costumes had been stolen. The door didn't have a lock and the alley led right to a busy street, so it might have been someone in the audience, but really, it could have been anyone. Needless to say, I was very, very upset. Luckily, we had a few extra costumes made so Ray Ray could still perform, but it was still a blow to all of us. A few weeks later, I got home from work, turned on my computer, and saw an email with an attachment. It was the video that everyone is now calling Blank Room Soup. The guy in the bib with his eyes blacked out eating, I don't know what out of the bowl with a big spoon, and my character standing around him. I put it up on YouTube so I could share it with my group. We talked about it at length. Was the guy crying, laughing? We couldn't tell. Honestly, the strangest part to me was that the Ray Rays in the video moved and behaved exactly in the way they should. It's something that new performers had to train for weeks to get right when we rehearsed the new acts. I don't think we had much video online at the time to reference either. It was a little strange thinking that the people who were making these videos had been watching us perform for perhaps some time. Later, I was sent a link to this. I like weird stuff, and even though they were using my stolen characters, I found my videos funny, even if they were a little insulting to my creations. Some of the people in my group even reposted some of the Ray Ray soup videos later on. There are more clips than the ones posted. I think the last one I got was a few years ago. You're making me wonder if the people who made them are seeing all this online attention too. Put shortly, the email talks about how Raymond used to perform shows around the country with these costumes, and at one show they were stolen. Not long after, he received an email with the soup video, which he himself posted online to show some friends and to share a good laugh. Some things are off about this, however. The idea that Raymond found these videos humorous is slightly concerning, considering the fact that when these videos exploded in popularity, it brought distress to almost everyone who viewed it for the first time, as there really was no indication that this was a joke. Since then, it's still unclear whether this video is fake or real. 112 Dirtbag. The disappearance of Mara Murray is often called the first crime mystery of the social media age. Born on May 4th, 1982, in Brockton, Massachusetts, Mara had a somewhat troubled childhood. Her parents divorced when she was 6, and she moved in with her mother as the youngest of 4 siblings. She began studying chemical engineering at the United States Military Academy, but later transferred to the University of Massachusetts Amherst to study nursing. But life wasn't easy for Mara. She had a few run-ins with trouble. For instance, she was caught using a stolen credit card to order food. She faced consequences, receiving a 3-month good behavior bond. Just a few days before her disappearance, her emotions seemed fragile. On February 5th, 2004, Mara spoke with her older sister about her sister's relationship troubles. Later that evening, coworkers noticed her breaking down in tears. When her supervisor had arrived, she appeared zoned out and unresponsive, so he escorted her back to her dorm. A couple of days later, her father visited to go car shopping and have dinner. After dropping him off, Mara borrowed his car to attend a dorm party, but in the early hours, she crashed into a guardrail while trying to return the car. Whether she had been drinking remains unknown. On February 9th, she sent an email to her supervisor claiming she'd be unavailable for a week due to a family death, but her family later confirmed no one had died. That same day, Mara packed clothes and toiletries into her car, boxed most of her dorm belongings, withdrew $280 from an ATM, and purchased $40 worth of alcohol. Why would someone pack as if they were moving in the middle of a semester? Sometime between 4 and 5 p.m., she left the Amherst campus and used her phone one last time to check for voicemail. By around 7 p.m., a loud noise was heard from a house on New Hampshire Route 112. A car had gone off the road, hit a tree, and ended up in a snowbank. It was Mara's. A bus driver stopped to help, but she insisted he not call the police and claimed she had already contacted AAA. Yet the company had no record of her call. She wasn't visibly injured, but the bus driver noticed she was shivering. When the police arrived at 7:46 p.m., Mara was gone. The car's windshield was locked, both airbags deployed, and inside were red wine stains, an empty beer bottle, directions to Burlington, and some personal items. Her bank cards, phone, and some alcohol were missing. Initially, the police suspected she had left voluntarily, but despite extensive searches, no credible sightings or leads have emerged since. Then, 8 years later, a strange connection appeared online. On February 8th, 2012, a YouTube video was uploaded by a channel named 112 Dirtbag, eerily referencing the street she disappeared on and a phrase her father had once used. The video, titled Happy Anniversary, shows an older man laughing maniacally, ending with a wink. Many have speculated that this was a sinister nod to Mara's disappearance. No evidence confirms this, but it's chilling to watch. Whether troll or something more sinister. Was it an escape? A kidnapping? An accident? The truth remains unknown. And alright guys, that wraps up some disturbing found footage. Would you like to see this turned into a series? I would love to make more found footage videos. I think it's super creepy, super interesting, and even though these were pretty popular cases, this is just kind of the first in the series. So comment down below if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, or a series that, you know, stems from this, because I'd love to turn this into a series. And I just really appreciate you watching to the end of the video. It means a lot. And if you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy other videos on this channel. So please check out some other videos. I appreciate you watching to the end. Thank you for watching. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye.